Well, last week, the Austin City Council approved a $6.6 billion budget for next year. That includes a 3.5 property tax increase and fee increases for utility, water, and trash pickup. So for a home worth around $470,000, that comes out to an extra $290 a year. And if Austinites approve the $295 million bond election in November, that figure will go even higher. Councilmember Marc Duchen joins us now, and we know, Marc, that you and Mayor Kirk Watson voted against the budget. What is your message to viewers now?
My message to viewers is that we've got to focus on two main things. One is affordability and one is public trust. And my frustration is that this budget that we passed damages both of them. And that we're gonna see people, as you said, paying more taxes, renters are gonna pay more for rent, people are already being squeezed everywhere we look by gas and grocery store prices and insurance and all of their daily expenses, and they're looking to council for some leadership. And instead, we've said we don't care that we're going to pass a max tax rate increase and also put a $300 million bond on the ballot. We've got to respond to the affordability crisis here in Austin.
Now, this comes after voters overwhelmingly rejected Prop Q. So do you think this new budget listened or ignored voters who made their voices heard last year?
It totally ignored the voters and the people that I'm hearing from. And we had feedback overwhelmingly. Even the city's own survey showed that 80% of people did not want to pay more taxes, even for more services. And so we've got to start responding to that. Otherwise, there will be rejection at the ballot box. Otherwise, there will be consequences for the council. And look, we need a government that's responsive to people and not one that doesn't understand that we're in the middle of what could be a worsening economic challenge right now. And seems like we're totally oblivious to that. The council is totally oblivious to that.
So what are you telling people who are feeling priced out of Austin and they're going to see their tax bill go up again?
I mean, the reality is there are things that we can do. And there are and so my team, we scrutinized the budget. We identified dozens of places that we could make reductions without really damaging services. We can still deliver 99.9% of our city services. And the challenge was that council wasn't interested in any of those changes. And so we've got to figure out how do we make sure that everybody's voice is being heard in this process and not just some narrow interests that show up to council and advocate for certain things. And that's what's missing right now. We're missing the average person's input into this process. And that's what we'll be working on, as well as the other things we'll be working on in terms of, everybody in this town has figured out how to prioritize their essentials for their family, for their businesses, but obviously council is not. And we've got to go back and figure out for things like travel, right? Travel expenses, what's essential and what's not essential. So there's work that we'll be starting to do this month, next month, to try and, going forward, make sure that we've got good guidelines for the next budget process so we can start to make sure we are focusing on delivering essential services, but also paring back on the things that are non-essential, which we haven't done in this budget.
Sure. Let's move on to the bond that's coming up here in November, $295 million, parks and libraries. You didn't want this to go to voters. Why not, and what's your message to voters?
Well, one thing is that we wanted to follow staff's recommendation, and staff didn't recommend this. They wanted us to wait for the same reason I did, which is I think it's really important that we get back to a 6-year bond cycle. We have not had that for almost 2 decades here in Austin. We've been asking voters every 2 years for money for everything under the sun. Mm-hmm. And what's happened is now we've got $1 billion worth of unspent bonds as a result of that kind of haphazard process. So my hope was that we could align everything in 2028 and then move forward. Most cities and counties across the country have a 5 to 6 year planning process that aligns with that bond process. And that's a big part of the reason that I haven't been supportive of this. I felt like there was a different way, we had a different plan. It was smaller, it took care of the emergency items that we needed to. But instead, here we are with another $300 million that's gonna further hit people. It's like a 1-2 punch.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're out of time. Is there anything else? Last thoughts?
Look, I believe in a lot of the city services that we need to provide. the problem is how we get there. And my hope is that I can work together with the mayor and with others that believe in prioritizing affordability so that we come into the budget process next year with a different frame of mind, different tool set, and a different way of solving this problem, because what we're doing right now isn't working.
All right, Marc Duchen, thank you so much for coming on KVUE News Midday.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.